Good morning, everybody. John Scopa here for GAI Insights, bringing you the top AI news, essential, important, or optional, putting thoughts in your head and time in your day. Today, we've got a pretty full house. We got Ankash, Tim, the ever effervescent Alden D. Rosario, and Paul Meyer. All right. Got a bunch of interesting things today, everything from Bain's advice on branding in the world of agents, all the way through the notion of steering with hooks in terms of making models more efficient. Okay. Akash, we get the first article, please.
Thanks, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from Bain and Company, and it is titled "When People Never See Your App: Designing Brands for the Agentic Economy."
Yeah, we got this whole set of things here where, and we as a firm have opined on this a bunch, that there's now a robot between you and your customer. What do you think, you're all
So, first of all, yes, good, important article. And unless somebody has been living under a rock, they know that Google search and the way search is changing dramatically. You will not find a single marketing department who is now not flipped on its head on how they do the marketing, right? So that part is covered. As far as this article is concerned, it's a respected authority like Bain, and they are doing a good job of surfacing the problem.
Yep.
Which is, how does a marketing department now design their entire marketing around these new agents where the human doesn't even come to your website, right? It's literally possible that the human is typing in chat GPT and saying, hey, I've heard about GAI Insights, please sign up for their conference. And nobody ever shows up on your website. The agent will do the research, will contact GAI Insights, will fill up the form, will sign up for the conference, right? So how do the websites transform and adapt to this, right? So that's what the article covers. What I was hoping for, which didn't happen in the article, is yeah, everybody knows the problem, but what is the solution? And it was completely bare on what the exact solution is, right? And if you look at the exact solutions, it is designing your website for authority, for information gain, for agentic commerce, right? Like, why should the human come to GI Insights when it can just take care of all the signups and paying and signing up for the conference and all that? So that's the way to think about it and the twist around that.
All right. So you ended up with essential, important, or optional.
I would put it as important. Like, I didn't put it as essential because, there was no depth in actually solving the problem. Like, here are the three things that need to be done.
Yeah.
Or here's how you do it. That part was missing.
Yeah, I think, Alden, you have a biased sample in the sense of the early adopters are coming to you. You'd be amazed how many marketing departments don't even know that this is going on. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, and I can sort of go important. I thought this was a lightweight article. I thought the robots might have done a little better. So to your point, though, it makes the argument that we've been making for a long time, but still a lot of people don't know, that they're being disintermediated. I thought their approach, as Alden said, there was no approach, really. There was some high-level platitudes about make your site more informational, but there was also some conflicting things about, well, you still want to lure them to your site when you can. And I think there needs to be a whole reassessment of that whole strategy. And again, we can't let go of the things we've already got by thinking incrementally. So why do you have a website? Is that really a good thing to have a website? Websites have only existed for 20 years out of all of humanity, and only 20 years even out of all of e-commerce. I guess that's most of e-commerce. But lots of commerce went on before there were websites, and lots of commerce could go on after there might not be websites. So the question is, why are you thinking about it in terms of brand design of your website and luring people there and fixing your website, as opposed to thinking about how these robots are going to change the relationship and understanding where you're going to fit and whether you want to fit that way. And if you don't, then you have to start to think about what you might do. But I can be talked into important because, as you say, there's so little knowledge of this, but I'd probably give it an optional in the general state of things.
All right, and important and optional. I'm headed for important on this one. What do you think, Ankash?
But I was important as well, John. I agree with your point that a lot of marketing departments are still not aware what AEO is or what's happening in the agentic world. So for those departments, I think this is an important read.
All right, Paul, where are you?
I was an optional. I expect a lot more Bain from Bain. This is not tactical and actionable enough. This is 2026 mid-March. It's not 2024. So optional.
Yeah, I hear you, Paul. It is kind of a lightweight thing. All right, let's go optional on this. All right, next.
In true AEO fashion, the information gain on this was zero.
Well said.
Yeah, I'm more where Lucinda is, which is I think actually websites. I hear what you're saying, Tim. You're stepping back and looking at it, but I think websites are actually more important than ever. But that's another.
Yes.
They might be, but I think you need to think about it in the context of what's going on and not just say, I'm just going to fix my website so the agents like it.
Absolutely. All righty. Next.
Okay, moving on to the next one. This one comes from Google, and they are introducing Vibe Design with Stitch.
Yeah, amazing stuff you can do here with user interface. What do you think, Tim?
I think really a beautiful, interesting thing. I put it in the category of everyday miracle. It's really still almost research, just out. So more of a product announcement. Really interesting, but let's see what actually happens. There's a number of ways you can now do this kind of thing, which is, I should back up and say this is they call it Vibe Design, but it's not really design. It's really just tinkering to get graphical websites together using conversation, which can be quite powerful and quite useful, easy to iterate, easy to create flows through your website. So that's all great. And you do it just using LLM and this canvas, this infinite canvas they give you. So it's got some nice tooling in it. I think there are lots of other ways to do this. I mean, Lovable sort of started this craze a while back. So optional for me.
All right, comprehensive interface design. What do you think, Alden?
Yeah, I would put this important, but again, the proof is in the pudding here. And does it really work? If they can make this a replacement for Figma or Canva, where just like how Claude Code is now writing really fantastic code that runs and works, if they can make it such that this design coding or vibe designing actually works, then I think we might be on to something really good. Because if there's one thing that is still a non-solved problem, it is design. And so I would put it as important and something to really keep an eye on.
All right, Akash, where are you on this?
Yes, John, I was important as well, John. I think we discussed Replet's Agent 4 last week only, where they are doing something similar as well. So as Alton mentioned, design is an important area where there hasn't been much advancement. So interesting area to look forward to if we can do the entire thing from design to production on one single platform. Nothing like that. And so important for me.
All right. Paul, I'm predicting optional. Where are you on this?
Yeah, my view, optional. It's a product announcement. It's everyday miracle, and again, it's a vector of innovation that's still not proven yet. To highlight Alden's point, I mean, all these things. Yeah, it's great, but it's only 80%. So we need more case studies to get more confidence. It's actually going to be 100%. So optional.
All right. Yeah, I think I'm going to go optional on this one. It's fantastic environment. New area. But product announcement, not a lot of backing, so optional it is. All right, next.
And
Okay, moving on to the next.
They would follow AWS and get 6 or 8 case studies out on this quickly because people want the case studies. They don't want to be talked to.
Yeah, there we go. Tell me, not do me, not talk to me. All right. Xiaomi, next.
Yes. The next one comes from Xiaomi, and they have stunned VentureBeat with new Mimo V2 Pro LLM nearing GPT 5.2 and Opus 4.6 in performance at fraction of the cost.
Yeah, what do you think here, Ankash? The Chinese hot on the heels of the leaders.
Right. So this particular model, Mimo V2 Pro, this is a mixture of expert model coming from Xiaomi, total 1 trillion parameters, 42 billion active in any forward pass. The key thing here is the context window. So they have a 1 million token context window, and it scores really well on the artificial analysis intelligence index. So it's at score 49, which is almost in the same tier as GPT 5.2 codex and Opus 4.6 as well. The main story here is the cost. So artificial analysis was able to run this across their full index at $348, whereas GPT 5.2 cost around $2,300, and Claude Opus 4.6, it cost near about $2,500. So the overall cost is really less with performance of the frontier models. So it is priced around $1 per 1 million input tokens and $3 per million output tokens. So I think really an interesting release from Xiaomi. I was not essential on this one because still all the benchmarks have been reported by Xiaomi, but I was important. AI leaders can look at this model who are looking to save on cost and have the same performance as some of the frontier models right now. So important for me, John.
All right. What'd you think here, Alden?
I put it as optional, but not out of disrespect or something. Like, the first thing is like these Chinese models are getting so good, and it's just spectacular how with so little resources they are coming out with these, like, almost like great LLM models, right? And the sort of innovation that is coming out of the Chinese lab is like, you got to like really give it to them. But in my mind, it's almost like this, like, iPhone versus Chinese Android model type thing, right? There will be use cases where, you need a billion of these LLMs out in production at super low cost. Then this would be the reason I put it as like optional is because, they're all competing with each other. So I'm really like, don't know like whether it's Kimi 2.5 or this one or which one, right? But they seem all similar in capability.
All right, Tim, just another commodity option.
Yeah, I'm with Alden. It's astonishing how good these models are getting and how fast they're getting there. But I would still rate this optional today. That at some point this may become much more important, but not yet. It's a product announcement. Again, these numbers are benchmark numbers, which are impressive. But the question is, when you're in an enterprise, first of all, you're going to use a Chinese model. That's a big issue for a lot of enterprises still. And second of all, what's the real cost of doing real work? And if it's really 1/7, they may start to gain some traction, but we'll have to see. A lot of, as Alden said, there's also a lot of other models. There's going to be competition. So is this going to be the winning model, or is it going to be Kimi or Quen or something else? So I just think there's a lot going on, and I'd rather watch from the hill right now than participate. Let it sort out a little bit.
All right, Paul, where are you on this?
Yeah, optional. I also think, the values we've talked multiple times is moving in the harness and the combination of multiple models, not a single model here, but definitely everyday miracle optional.
Yeah, let me make the case more important because I think, we've got a major producer here. Xiaomi's third largest cell phone manufacturer. It's going to end up in their cell phones for sure. The performance is unbelievable, right? 7x. I think it's a killer. Yeah, I agree with you, Alden. There's all kinds of models, and this is roughly performant, but this is really up there with the big guys, right? Opus and Sonnet 4.6 and so forth. I don't know. I think the AI leader should be aware of some of these more leading models, and so to me, it's more than optional because this notion that we've been talking about for some time, value engineering, is going to be critical as AI becomes more of the cost base.
John, we've seen open source models at the top with the big guys for the last 18 months, 2 years. This is
but I think
nothing new that's at the top of the benchmarks.
Yeah, I hear you. But again, my idea on important is, like, if you got extra time, you should read about this. And I think if the AI leaders got extra time, they should read about, kind of where that frontier is right now. And this is one of the articles I would point them to. I mean, it's pretty powerful. I mean, I hear what you're saying. All right. Well, you guys are all optional, so democracy wins. We're going optional next.
What, John, you feeling okay? What's happening?
A long week.
The world's falling apart.
We need a coffee shot.
All right, next.
Okay, moving on to the next one. Yes, this one comes from Google, and it is titled Small Models High Quality Inside BMW Group's Experiments Evaluating Domain-Specific Language Models.
Yeah, not to prejudice the witness, but I continue to be amazed by a company that engineers so well to have such thin case studies here. But what do you think, Alden?
Yeah. Again, this is a Google, case study, but it looked little like it was lacking in like data and depth. SLMs, everybody's excited about them if they can make them work on device, and this is the right path, right? So Google is basically showing whatever they have and hoping that other people adopt. So as far as this exact piece, it goes into like fine tuning the SLMs and stuff like that, like pretty standard stuff. Again, it's like one of those AWS recipes that AWS puts up. It's a Google version of that.
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to look at is that graphic that shows the process within Vertex AI of how they choose different models and so forth. I thought this is kind of cool. It goes in here and it chooses models, then does performance on the models, given the task and so forth. So this process I thought was interesting. I thought it was unfortunate they didn't have more about what it does for BMW. But I don't know. What do you think, Ankash?
I was optional, John, due to lack of quantitative outcomes here. But yes, that particular image was interesting, somewhat in the sort of model garden category in terms of how you go about selecting models. But still, I would say an optional read.
All right, Paul. Can't hear you, Bigga.
Definitely optional. I think a couple things of note to me. I think one is reinforces again. There's two categories of small language models. Ones that are energy efficient to be actually on device or cars, and the other one that can be used in cloud. I think second is, there's a lot of startups, RC, Mistral, Liquid, who are trying to compete also on the small language model cloud or on device. And, the big guys, Google, showing they're quite competitive. And the battle to get these things on smartphones and machines like cars is a massive battle. And Google continues to be very competitive. So we don't have an industry where all the innovators are sitting with just the startups, but optional.
Yeah, Kevin had a pretty interesting finding there. They're saying 3/4 of AI adopters are using small domain-specific LLMs. That's a much higher number than I would have expected there, Kevin. So that's really interesting. I do think, from a cost and capability basis, I also think architecturally, if you think of these things as organic, not mechanistic, mechanistic systems tend to have centralized control systems. Organic systems usually have hybrid ones, a combination of centralized and decentralized. And so, if you think your body, right, there's all kinds of local control as well as more centralized control. And so I think the natural evolution of this, because I think we're fundamentally going from a mechanistic control logic to an organic control logic as we put agents in, and more biomimicry in terms of how these things operate. So I think it's inevitable that we're going to have hybrid intelligence at the edge and at the center and everywhere else. Anyway, so small models are, no question in my mind, they're going to be a big.
Well said. That was a good paragraph. Well said.
Yeah, and so let's see, Tim, have you weighed in on this one?
I haven't, and I think if you're in the edge device, whether it's cars or phones or anything else, this is essential reading because BMW is a big player, and this is where the world is going. I think it's interesting. I think car companies have had it wrong for a couple of decades at least because it takes them so long.
Not centuries,
to
Tim.
integrate, huh?
Not centuries, but
Well, at least let's say even 3 decades, because 3 decades ago we did that work for GM, not to mention any names, because they believe the car has to be self-contained and they have to own all the technology. And if Apple CarPlay and the Android equivalent have showed anything, it's everybody's got a phone. Everybody's got Google Maps. Why are you creating your own mapping programs that suck in comparison, to use a technical term? And in this sense, I would say, why on earth are you going to fight the Googles and the hyperscalers to stuff these tiny little models into your car so you can have control, instead of taking advantage of the phones and other devices that people already own and just have them plug in and use them that way, which people already do. People use the voice control on their phones to make phone calls in their car instead of the voice control on the car. So and a lot of cars still don't have voice control. So anyway, but all that being said, optional for the average AI leader, and I don't think they're going to do this. I think the car companies can't get out of their own way, and they're going to take 10 years to get these tiny little models that don't do much into their cars, and everybody's going to use their phone instead.
all right, Ankash, what do you think?
Optional done.
All righty, optional it is. Next.
Okay, the next one comes from Microsoft, and they have introduced MAI Image 2 for limitless creativity.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, if you're Mid-Journey or some of these small model companies or something, you got to be sitting there worrying about. You must open up the news every day and sort of say that one of the giants just introduced something that could crush me. What do you think here, Tim?
Just exactly that. Another everyday miracle. I would rank this optional, may be important because it's Microsoft and they have such power and distribution, but it's pretty impressive, but also ho-hum in terms of image generation that's already out there. It's just that it's Microsoft. And so now it's going to be available to enormous numbers of people. And absolutely, if I'm Mid-Journey or somebody else, I am very, very nervous. And it's just amazing. This is an indication of how fast this market is moving, because people argue it's moving fast. It's not really moving that fast. I don't know. Mid-Journey was the darling of everybody, less than a year ago, and maybe even 6 months ago. And now I just talked to a couple of folks who do graphic design in the past 2 weeks. They haven't touched Mid-Journey in 2 months. They're all using whatever Google is called, VO or whatever it's called, and Nanobot, Nano Banana.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No,
So that's incredibly fast for a company with the power and position that Mid-Journey have to just disappear in a couple of months.
Yeah, one thing about the early adopters, they're early adopters. So if you don't have the best thing, right? The Ankash, if you just show some of the images, which are just fantastic. What do you think, Roland?
Yeah, definitely optional. It's a Microsoft thing. Like with most things Microsoft, there's no harm in being number 2. And so Microsoft is fine with it being number 2, integrated across their platform. The lift they can give their existing customers who are starved for anything is spectacular. So why not?
All right, Ankash, where are you?
Optional done.
All righty, optional. Yeah, no, it's interesting. As you say, although I remember I did a presentation one time, and Bill Gates was up after, and somebody asked him what percentage of Excel is actually used, and he said 13%. This notion of basically, being the Swiss Army knife, but you really only use the bottle opener and the screwdriver kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same thing about Microsoft Word, I suspect you could find out.
I think he said something like that's a pretty roughly the same number across different apps. Next and last, I believe.
Yes, the last one for today comes from Strands Agents, and it is titled How Steering Hooks Achieved 100% Agent Accuracy Where Prompts and Workflows Failed.
Yeah, it's interesting. The whole I think this whole notion of like where does intelligence sit? And there's whether it's the pre-training, the actual use, enacted as it's done after the fact. What do you think of this particular article on Coach?
I was essential on this one, John. So this one talks about while building agents, we tend to add a chain of prompts in the agent instruction box. And as we keep on adding those instructions, the agents, it performs for certain iterations, but then it becomes brittle and the agents start breaking. It's not able to perform the task that it is given. So Strand has an idea where they are controlling the agent at an action level, not just the instruction level. So basically, whenever it is taking any action with an outside tool, they are adding steering hooks, which are sort of deterministic small pieces of code that intercept those tool calls and verify that they are correct before allowing them. So this makes the agent workflow safer and more accurate because these rules, instead of an LLM following those instructions, prompt instructions, these rules are enforced deterministically. So basically for real life agents, which are now doing a lot of tasks, which are running to days and even weeks now, I think this is an interesting idea to pursue, that you can do these deterministic actions and make sure that your agents work much better.
Yeah, it's funny. If we're to anthropomorphize this, I think that looks a lot like metacognition, right? Before I go do something, to think about why I'm doing it, and so this kind of insertion of metacognition. All right, Alden, essential. What do you think?
I put it as essential, right? Maybe not for the enterprise leader, but for whoever the enterprise leader has working on, like Claude Code or any of the workflows, right? Now, the reason for this is if anybody is using Claude Code or Claude Cowork heavily, they will notice that these agents go off the rails, right? Think of it as a train and as a more like a bullet train. And you will notice that the agents, after some times, just start flying off the rails, right? So this is a great way of keeping the agents on track, because if you just let the agent do whatever it wants, it will fly off. Now, if some people have been following my LinkedIn, you all will see that we introduced a similar system called a quadruple verification, right? Which basically puts the output in check. It's like telling the train every 1 millisecond, like, are you still on track? Which direction are you going? Wait, let me get you back. Are you on the right place? Is the location correct? Right? And that is how you keep the agents going towards your goal, right? Just like a bullet train, rather than like flying off into the air and like smashing into whatever's on the side. So 100% yes, this is, I love that they did this. I love that they are publicizing this, because this is a difference between, like, just garbage being generated by the agents versus actually staying on track and heading towards the goal, like whatever the goal is.
Yeah, I
So
love your analogy of the bullet train. I was reminded of when they upgraded the Acela in the Northeast Corridor. The U.S. train. It only got like they only shaved off about 15% of the time because of the shape of the tracks. Like the tracks are, when you go through Connecticut, for example, you just can't, compared to like when I took the Eurostar. I mean, you can just feel that, they like, even on the UK side, right? They had to completely re-engineer the tracks to be able to go the speed they're going. All right, what do you think here, Tim?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't give this an essential, but I can go with it. It's good because it gives people an understanding and a framework for evaluation. The interesting thing is that just by doing an SOP, you get almost exactly the same performance, but a higher cost, but it's much easier to implement. You don't need to do any coding. The bigger issue to me, which they don't make, because they're talking their book at one level, is, this is the classic case I've been telling people whenever I talk to them about AI. Don't use AI if you don't need it. Use the right tool. Don't use a hammer for a screwdriver. Don't use a front end loader to dig a garden ditch. And so, people right now, they're running out there and they're using LLMs to check whether the social security number has 9 numbers. That's really expensive and complicated, and not even 100% correct all the time because of the stochastic nature of these products. Now, if you want to ask it a complex question, they're fantastic, and you're not going to get that with a little piece of code that checks social security numbers. But there should be combinations. When you have simple deterministic things, it's much better. And in fact, in general, the way I think about it is we like physics to be static in our online world. So we like the physics of the online world to work. And so the more we can do things that pay attention to the physics, like, is this really the library card that needs to be used, the better. And these are trivial. And instead of using LLMs for everything, in fact, if you take this to the logical conclusion, I'll make a polemic proposal. Maybe the better approach is to generate all the code and then just run the code. And don't run the LLM in production. Just use the LLM to generate the system and make it much faster and easier to generate and modify. But actually run code in the real world, because it's easy to test and it doesn't break in strange ways that you don't understand.
All right.
So
we're over time here, but Alden's not on board for that. Can you give us a quick, just a brief?
I respect your opinion on this, Tim, that deterministic is good when you want like 100% accuracy on something. But the problem is that the world has so much noise in it that it's next to impossible to create deterministic outcomes. That's where LLMs really shine. Even something as simple as, please analyze this blog post. There is no way you can do that deterministically, right? So, like, I like a combination of like deterministic when I want to be 1000% sure that, the, like, if I need to
yeah,
test
I wasn't saying that was the right approach. I was just saying I'll say something polemic to cause thinking, because you think at the extremes, it gets you thinking outside of your current box. I agree. You need a hybrid, and these are great mediators. Much better, in my opinion, on the input than the output right now. And so the question is, what do you do to make the output more reasonable? And we're way over time and down the rabbit hole. I'm sure we could talk about this for hours, but I do think most people don't pay nearly enough attention to creating these small little functions that are deterministic for doing the simple things, and just get that out of the LLM.
Yeah, I think this year and next, we're going to continue to develop the metacognition and, the optimization, as well as model choice, because at the end of the day, it's a hybrid. Even the big models are hybrid models, right? And they're going to, and a lot of the questions I think are going to be about, how do you determine truth and progress in the context of these things? You know what I mean? And those are complicated functions. All right, I'm going to give this guy an essential, just to kind of work that out for the weekend. Okay. All right. So we got 1 essential, 5 optionals, and one announcement from GAI Insights. We've got the Learning Lab on April 6th, 7 to 8 Eastern time, where we're going to go back into OpenClaw and agentic, real hands-on agentic creation. Great. Any announcements, Alden, from Custom GPT?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So Claude Code for business use, not personal use. That's what we are working on and should be coming out for the next few days. And I'm like super excited about it.
All right. So beautiful. Before tax day, we're going to have Claude Code for business use.
Yeah. Just tell it to do my taxes and it will.
Awesome. Great. So 1 essential. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a good AI time. We'll see you all on Monday. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye now. Thank you, all. Bye now.